Cremation is an increasingly popular way to dispose of a loved one's remains after death, but it's actually a more complex process than you might think. Here's what happens to a body when it's cremated. Ironically, a body's journey towards cremation begins with a trip to the refrigerator. Crematories nowadays have special rooms maintained at low temperatures. This is where the body of the deceased stays while they're not yet lined up for cremation. When it's time, the staff retrieve the remains from the refrigerated room in preparation for identification. Prior to identification, staffers give the deceased one final bath to ensure that the body is clean and well dressed, though unless the cremation will be open to the public or the family specifically asks for it, the deceased will not undergo embalming. The cremation process officially kicks off with a medical examiner properly identifying the body, typically with assistance from a relative of the deceased. The body receives a metal ID tag, which will remain there during the cremation. The family member also authorizes the cremation process. Meanwhile, it's the examiner's job to confirm that the body isn't vital in any pending investigations, as medical exams obviously won't be possible post-cremation. Depending on where the cremation is taking place, the next step in the process is usually the removal of jewelry, prosthetics, eyeglasses, medical devices, and other accessories from the body. Among the first things the technician removes are so-called cancer seeds. If the deceased was undergoing treatment for cancer while they were still alive, chances are the technician will find some radioactive isotopes implanted in their body. Prosthetics and silicone implants also don't stay on the body because they could result in some unpleasant reactions during the cremation process. Additionally, the crematory technician takes items from the body that the bereaved would like to hold on to. However, the technician doesn't remove any pins, screws, or replacement joints from the deceased. Any items that don't end up in the family's hands undergo recycling or proper disposal but are never directly reused. A notoriously dangerous item to leave on a soon-to-be cremated corpse is an artificial pacemaker. Cambridgeshire Live reports that a forgotten pacemaker can generate an explosion powerful enough to send a 40-ton crematory machine flying up to 7 inches off the ground. A paper in the Journal of the Royal Society of Medicine reveals that the first recorded incident of a pacemaker accident during a cremation took place in 1976, resulting in 5 explosions and a half-inch sized hole in the machine. While the final destination of a person's cremated remains could eventually be inside an urn or scattered across a significant location, before cremation the body is first placed in a cremation casket. According to Neptune Society, the family has the option to purchase either a traditional casket or a combustible one, with the only requirement being that the casket must be devoid of metal pieces. A combustible casket is usually the choice for families who plan to hold a religious service or make the cremation viewable to the public. As the name suggests, these metal-free coffins are made of bamboo, cloth-covered wood, hardwood, teak, wicker, plywood, pine, or any other combustible material. Even a cardboard box could suffice. When it's time, the staff wheel the casket into a machine called a cremation chamber or retort, but never an oven. Technicians preheat the incinerator to about 1100 degrees Fahrenheit. During the process itself, temperatures can reach up to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. Designed to accommodate a single body, the chamber is lined with fire-resistant bricks that can withstand the heat beyond the hottest temperatures within. For safety reasons, technicians only open the mechanized automated doors just enough to let the body slide safely in without subjecting the room to unbearable heat. Today's cremation chambers also adhere strictly to state environmental regulations. The cremation process generates gases and particles, which is why there's a secondary chamber that sucks them in and takes them through a 30-foot labyrinth of sorts, while subjecting them to flames up to 1700 degrees Fahrenheit. By the end of the maze, most of the gases will have already been incinerated before they can even reach the atmosphere. Depending on the arrangement or the religious beliefs of the family, the bereaved may start the cremation process by pressing a button, and then science takes over. About 3/4 of the human body is water. During the cremation, all of that moisture is the first to go, and the body dries up as the heat in the chamber intensifies. The entire process is a mix of melodramatic and macabre. Body hairs burn up, skin waxes, welts, and splits as it burns. The muscles flex one last time as the scorching heat causes them to contract. The soft tissues melt into nothingness, and the skeleton? That breaks down bit by bit, calcifying and crumbling as the chamber torches the remains. Eerily, because the secondary chamber deals with the resulting gases and particles before they can make it out, the burning body typically generates no smell. This also prevents any mercury, such as from dental amalgam fillings, from escaping the chamber. In some cases, crematoriums use the heat generated by the entire process for warmth, a practical use of all that energy, considering how some can cremate up to 3,000 bodies yearly. Even with the metal tag and precautionary guidelines in place, the fear of a crematory mix-up, whether it involves the wrong body getting cremated or a family receiving the wrong ashes, is ever present. However, cremations are done separately, one body at a time, to greatly minimize the risk of any of these unfortunate events happening. Still, the unthinkable has happened on rare occasions. In 2018, for instance, a woman in Texas was supposed to be buried but was accidentally cremated instead. And in 2015, a family was sent the ashes of an unknown stranger rather than their family member. So, how long does it take to cremate a body? The answer is essentially, it depends. Various factors affect the duration of the process, such as the type and quality of the cremation equipment and chamber, as well as the nature of the cremation casket. The weight of the deceased is another important consideration. The heat inside the chamber burns fat rather quickly, yet an obese body can take longer to cremate, and in some cases can generate more gases and particles than the afterchamber can handle. It's safe to say that a typical cremation can last from 60 minutes to 3 hours, though most take between 90 and 120 minutes. The staff can check the status of the cremated body through a spy hole, but only when the chamber isn't firing off pillars of flames. Interestingly enough, the word ashes is a bit of a misnomer. Despite spending hours getting blasted by extreme heat, the body that went into the cremation chamber doesn't come out of it looking like a pile of ash. While ashes is the more commonly used term, it's more accurate to call them cremains, because that's precisely what they are. The cremated remains of bones that have turned coarse and grayish instead of powder-like. As you can imagine, the resulting cremains are piping hot, making them unsafe to handle with bare hands. Technicians use a long rod, like a farmer's rake or hoe, to gather them up, putting them in a separate container and leaving them alone until they're cool enough to inspect. By the end of the cremation process, what used to be a human body turns into less than 10 pounds worth of cremains. After some time, the technician inspects the cooled cremains for any remaining scraps of metal from dental or surgical implants. These technicians use forceps and strong magnets to make the metal elimination process easier. After stripping the cremains of metal, the metal is sent off to be recycled or disposed of following state regulations. It's important to separate the leftover metal from the cremains, as those bits can cause problems in the next part of the process. The cremains undergo one more step before the crematory prepares to send them back to the family of the deceased. It's time to pulverize the little chunks and fragments of dried bone into sand-like particles. To accomplish this, technicians use a machine called a cremulator, which is sort of a high-powered grinder or blender that quickly pulverizes the bone fragments using ball bearings or sharp rotating blades. After the deceased has been cremated, there are a number of options that the bereaved can pick to serve as their loved one's final resting place. However, this isn't an instantaneous process. According to Lincoln Heritage, it may take anywhere between a week and 10 days before the crematory finishes preparing the cremains for the family, depending on their internal policies. By far, one of the most popular options is a cremation urn. The staff places a plastic bag containing the ashes into the urn, which they then hand over to the family. The family can either purchase the urn directly from the crematory or buy from a different source. Urns don't necessarily have to look plain and undecorated, though. You can get designer urns that come in every shape possible, from an urn with a famous dictator's face on it to a Star Trek-inspired container.
The urn, it's the only place.
Sometimes families may go for more personalized or unique ways of storing cremains. Some opt to bury the urn or position it under a significant spot like a sculpture or a tree. Others place the cremains inside pendants or lockets so that they can take their dearly departed with them wherever they travel. There are even family members who opt to compress the carbon-rich cremains into cremation diamonds. For some folks, the idea of having their ashes scattered across the ocean or all over their favorite spot is the truest form of returning to nature. As romantic as it may seem in books and movies, however, it's not something your loved ones can easily do for you someday. In fact, it's illegal in quite a few places, and if your loved ones get caught, your final resting place will most likely be a landfill. Unsurprisingly, amusement parks are at the top of the list of places where it's illegal to scatter ashes. According to a 2018 article in the Wall Street Journal, a HEPA cleanup immediately follows any attempt to scatter cremains in Disney parks, which, according to employees, is apparently a monthly thing. If you and your deceased loved one were fans of Mickey Mouse, getting caught would probably be the worst thing for both of you. The cremains would end up in the trash, and you'll get kicked out of the happiest place on earth.
If you insist on disposing your loved ones in a theme park, take them over to Busch Gardens, because anything goes over there.
Other places where you can't scatter ashes: golf courses, sports stadiums, or any kind of private property. If it's any consolation, you can send your loved one's ashes into outer space, though it'll cost you between $2,500 and $12,500. a cost that not everyone wants to pay.
We're scattering the f***ing ashes, but just because we're bereaved doesn't make us sad!
As mentioned earlier, the cremation process ends up generating large quantities of gas and particles, and while the afterchamber exists to deal with this, according to CNN, it's not always enough, especially with the rising number of cremations. So it's not surprising that experts have been working to come up with a more environmentally friendly alternative. According to Popular Mechanics, alkaline hydrolysis, also called liquid cremation, started out as a means of disposing of infected animal carcasses. The operator heats up a stainless steel pressurized chamber full of water and potassium hydroxide to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Within 3 hours, it can turn a body into a goopy greenish-brown liquid, leaving only softened bones and non-organic matter behind. A fortuitous side effect of this process, particularly from the perspective of human cremation, is that it generates fewer pollutants, including reduced carbon monoxide. Alkaline hydrolysis seems like a fantastic alternative to modern cremation, but there are some downsides to it. For starters, it's a lot more expensive. Crematories can expect to spend up to a cool $500,000 for the chamber, which is 5 times what a basic cremation chamber costs. The process also takes longer than cremation, up to 16 hours according to the Cremation Association of North America, and for now, it's illegal in many states. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about other interesting topics are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.